There is a metal that was once more valuable than gold, and today, you throw it in the bin without looking. In 1855, it was displayed in Paris beside the French crown jewels. An emperor is said to have kept a set of cutlery made from it, and used it only for the guests he wanted to impress most. Everyone else, according to the story, had to make do with gold. And here is the part that makes no sense at all. This is not a rare metal. It is the most abundant metal in the entire crust of the earth. It is under your feet right now, in enormous quantity, almost everywhere on the planet. So how does the most common metal on Earth become more precious than gold? And then, within about a single decade, become so cheap that we wrap sandwiches in it? The answer involves two young men who had never met, living on opposite sides of an ocean. Welcome back to TokiCast, my friend. If a story like this is your kind of thing, follow along. It means everything to us. Let me start with the reason nobody could get their hands on it. Aluminium is everywhere. Roughly 8% of the ground beneath you is aluminium, but you will never find a nugget of it, not one, anywhere, ever. Because aluminium is desperate to bond with oxygen, it grabs onto it and refuses to let go, so it sits in the earth, locked inside rock and clay, chemically married, and it will not come out. For thousands of years, humanity walked on top of a metal we did not know existed. The Romans built empires out of iron and bronze. Nobody suspected there was something else down there, in far greater quantity, hiding in the dirt. It was not until the 1820s that chemists finally managed to prize out tiny amounts of it. And when they saw it, they were astonished. Silvery, bright, and astonishingly light, lighter than any structural metal anyone had handled. They called it silver from clay, and there is a detail about the early production that tells you everything about how difficult this was. Early production required sodium, itself an expensive and violently reactive metal, to strip the oxygen away. So to make one costly metal, you first had to make another costly metal and persuade it to sacrifice itself. The output was small, inconsistent, and often impure. Imagine knowing, with certainty, that beneath every field in your country lies more of this metal than all the silver ever mined, seeing it in your samples, and being unable to get it out. That is a very particular kind of frustration. Not searching for something hidden, but standing on top of it. But producing it was brutal. The early process demanded enormous heat and expensive chemicals, and it yielded a smear of gray powder. In the 1850s, aluminium cost something like the price of silver, and by some measures more. And that is the moment it became a luxury, because there is nothing the wealthy love more than a substance almost nobody can obtain. At the Paris Exposition of 1855, bars of aluminium were put on display beside the crown jewels. People queued to look at a metal we now use for drink cans. And in 1884, the United States finished the Washington Monument and needed a cap for the very top. They chose aluminium, about 100 ounces of it, a small pyramid you could hold in your hands, and at the time it was one of the most precious objects in America. Before it was installed, it was reportedly put on public display at a jeweler's in New York, so people could see it. Read that again, a lightning conductor, made from the substance your kitchen foil is made of, displayed like a diamond. So the problem was never scarcity. The problem was that we could not get it out of the ground economically. Which brings us to the two young men. Their names were Charles Martin Hall and Paul Héroult, and the coincidence in their lives is one of the strangest in the history of science. Both were born in 1863. Both became obsessed with the same problem as young men. Both worked out that if you dissolve aluminium oxide in a molten mineral called cryolite, you can pass an electric current through it and pull the metal out. Both cracked it in 1886, Both were 22 years old. One was in Ohio, working in a woodshed behind his family home, assisted by his sister Julia. The other was in France. They had never met. They did not know the other existed. And both men died in 1914. Same birth year, same discovery, same year of discovery, same age, same year of death, on separate continents, in separate languages, with no contact whatsoever. And I want to slow down on Hall for a moment, because the setting matters. He was working in a woodshed behind the family house in Ohio, with equipment he had largely improvised. His sister, Julia Brainerd Hall, worked alongside him, helping with experiments and keeping the records that later documented the discovery. On the day it worked, the story goes that he came into the house carrying small pellets of aluminium in his hand to show his family. Some of those original pellets are still preserved today. A young man in a shed, in a small American town, holding the solution to a problem that had defeated the finest chemists in Europe for 60 years. And at the very same time, in France, a man his own age was holding the same answer. The process they found is still, fundamentally, how the world makes aluminium today. And now the story should end. Two geniuses solve it, the price falls, everybody gets cheap metal. That is the version most people know, and it is wrong. Because a chemical process on a workbench does not make a metal cheap. Hall's method needed something he did not have and could not make: electricity. Vast, continuous, absurd amounts of it. Pulling aluminium out of its oxide is one of the most electricity-hungry things human beings do at scale. It is not really a chemical industry. It is an electricity industry that happens to produce metal. So the true story is not two young men in 1886. The true story is that their discovery sat there, technically correct and commercially useless, until the world built something else entirely. Power stations, hydroelectric dams, rivers turned into current. Aluminium did not become cheap because we learned to make it. It became cheap because we learned to make electricity. Smelters were built beside waterfalls and dams because it was cheaper to move the factory to the power than the power to the factory. To this day, aluminium plants cluster around cheap electricity. And when that happened, the price did not fall. It collapsed. In the 1850s, aluminium had been sold by the ounce as a curiosity. Within a couple of decades of the new process and the power to run it, it was being sold by the ton at a small fraction of 1% of its former price. There is probably no other material in history that lost its value so completely, so quickly, without ever changing what it was. The emperor's cutlery, the monument cap, the crown jewel display case, all of it, made of the substance we now use once and throw away. And notice what happened next, because this is the part I find genuinely moving. When aluminium was priceless, it was cutlery for emperors. When it became worthless, it changed the world. Light enough to fly, aircraft could not exist as they do without it. Light enough to make food and drink portable and cheap. Strong enough for engines and buildings and cables. Aluminium became one of the load-bearing materials of the modern world the instant it stopped being special. There is a modern consequence to all of this that almost nobody thinks about. Because aluminium is essentially stored electricity, recycling it is extraordinarily worthwhile. Melting an existing object takes a small fraction of the energy needed to pull fresh metal from ore, commonly put at around 5%, which means the drink can in your hand is not a container. It is a battery of effort. Somebody spent enormous power to free those atoms, and if you throw it away, that work is buried again. A very large share of all the aluminium ever produced is still in use somewhere, because it does not degrade when melted and reformed. The metal in a window frame may once have been a wartime aircraft, and before that, a saucepan. The same atoms, carrying the electricity of a century ago into the present. So that is the answer. The most abundant metal on Earth was more precious than gold, not because it was rare, but because it was trapped, and unlocking it required more electricity than the 19th century could produce. Two 22-year-olds found the key in the same year, without knowing the other existed, but the door did not open until humanity built the power stations. Aluminium is not a story about chemistry. It is a story about electricity wearing a metal disguise. We began at a Paris exhibition with a bar of metal standing beside the crown jewels. We met a substance under our feet in vast quantity that refused to be separated from oxygen. We watched a nation cap its greatest monument with a small pyramid of it. We met two strangers born in the same year who solved the same puzzle at the same age in the same year and died in the same year. And we watched the value of a thing collapse to almost nothing without the thing itself changing at all. And here is the quiet part, the part that is really about you. Aluminium never changed, not one atom of it. It was exactly as useful, exactly as light, exactly as abundant when it sat beside the crown jewels as it is now in your kitchen drawer. The only thing that changed was our ability to reach it. I think about that more than I expected to. How much of what we call value is really just difficulty? How often something is precious, not because it is good, but because it is hard to get, and what that means for the things we chase. Because it works the other way too. The moment aluminium stopped being a treasure, it became genuinely useful to everybody. It could not build an aircraft while it was a status symbol. It had to become ordinary first. There is something in that worth holding on to. Sometimes the most valuable thing a thing can do is stop being valuable. Now tell me, which part surprised you the most? The emperor's cutlery, the monument cap displayed like a jewel, or the two strangers who lived parallel lives without ever knowing? Tell me below. Next time, a vegetable so distrusted that a king could not persuade his own people to eat it, so he set armed guards around a field of them, purely so that his subjects would want to steal them. It worked, and 2 generations later, the same plant would help kill 1 million people. Take care of yourself, my friend. This has been TokiCast, where the small things quietly change the world. I'll see you soon.